Have you ever looked at a dog and wondered what they were thinking? In the novel 15 Dogs by Andrea Alexis, the Greek gods Hermes and Apollo made a bet. They grant 15 dogs human consciousness to see even if one of them can die happy. I chose this piece because it completely flips our idea about intelligence. We usually think of human thought as a gift, but for these dogs, it becomes a devastating burden. I'm focusing on a dog named Prince. Prince uses his human mind to make poetry from his own language. Prince is seen as the outsider from his pack because the others think his poems are unnatural. I'll be reading from the last chapter of the novel. Prince Prince has the goal to preserve his language forever, but struggles to find a solution. He discovers the truth behind his language. In a heroic effort to preserve his language, Prince began to speak his poems to the woman. Whenever he could feel her presence or hear her voice, he would begin reciting. Girl, you are, you are. Girl, you are, you are. No surprise. The woman took the sounds Prince made for the grumblings of an old and frail dog. She would pet him, or hug him, or scratch him behind the ears whenever he spoke. Prince found this distracting, but he persisted, reciting the same poems over and over, waiting for her to recite it back to him. The more Prince did this, the more the woman tried to comfort him, because it did sound as if he were complaining about something. For one thing, like most poets, Prince's way of reciting his work was eccentric. He would sit up, trying to face the woman, then staying as still as he could. He'd recite the first line, pause, then recite the second line, and so on. This in itself was strange for the woman. It would have been strange for any human who was not a poet. Are you okay, Elvis? She'd ask, but as Prince had no idea what she was saying, he would simply carry on. He carried on until eventually it occurred to the woman that he was neither grumbling or choking, but he was doing something. In fact, after a week, she thought she recognized a pattern in his growls. Elvis isn't growling, she said to one of her sons. He's singing or something. Her son, however, would have none of it. Mom, he's old, and his mind's going, that's all. I suppose you're right, she said. But she was not convinced. And one day, as a kind of lark, she repeated Prince's grumblings back at him. Prince immediately stopped and barked happily. He repeated the passage she had repeated to him. And again, the woman spoke. Poorly and with a strange accent, but still a few lines of his verse. Gurry you are. Gurry you are. Here was a real breakthrough. Prince was profoundly grateful. It seemed to him that a great boundary had been crossed. But Apollo, ever implacable, was not finished with him. The the woman's version of his verse was the last thing Prince heard on earth. He then became stone deaf. He could not even hear himself, feeling only the vibrations his body produced when he tried to make a sound. This was a devastation. The world and all his versions of the world were taken away from him at once. Prince was not one to lose hope, but now hope had abandoned him. He was alone in endless gray silence, his sense of smell and balance the only acute senses left to him. Now and then he would be picked up by one of the men and put somewhere. This was the most disconcerting thing of all. Without warning, he would be at someone's mercy, in someone's arms. It helped that he could recognize the men by their smell, but it did not help much. Tired, old, deaf, and blind, Prince knew his time has come, and he tried to meet his fate with as much dignity as he could muster. He stopped eating. and drank little. He retreated into the depths of himself and waited for death that did not take long. One morning, he was picked up by the woman. He could feel her emotion. They were going somewhere, but Prince was too weak to mind. Outside, he felt the air on his muzzle. The lake came to him, its presence like a long-forgotten dream. It was a consolation. They were traveling in a car, a sensation that reminded him of Kim, and that too was consoling. And Prince allowed himself to be consoled, his mood little influenced by the smells of the veterinary clinic. Though he knew this, the smell of soap, chemicals, other animals, was almost certainly the end. One would have said, just before Prince died, that Apollo had won his bet, that none of the dogs had died happy, that they had died as miserably or more so than humans did. Lying quietly on a metal table, too tired to object, Prince was despondent about the loss of his language. But then, as those around him about the business of killing, one of his last poems returned to him. He heard it in his mind, as if someone were reciting it, almost as if it were not his at all. And that exact moment, it struck him again how beautiful his language was. Certainly, if he was the last of his pack, it was sad that no creature alive knew it. But how wonderful that he, unexceptionally though he had been allowed to know it as deeply as he had. He had not explored all of its depths, but he had seen them, and so it occurred to Prince that he had been given a great gift. More, it was a gift that could not be destroyed. Somewhere within some other being, his beautiful language existed as a possibility, perhaps as a seed. It would flower again. He was certain of it, and the certainty was wonderful. And so, against all expectations, Prince's spirit soared. In a word, he was happy as death came for him at last. Thank you.